So, you're thinking about moving to Vancouver's West End. Hello, Stanley Park and some of the best sunsets, but it might not be all that it's cracked up to be. In this video, I'm going to show you the good, the bad, the pros, and the cons. Join me as I uncover the truth about living in this highly sought-after community here in Vancouver. And stick around to the very end because I'm going to share with you an eye-opening fact that might just change your perspective on this community here. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is about real estate in Vancouver, subscribe below. Tap the bell for notifications to be the first to learn what's going on in the current market here in Vancouver. My name is Megan Becker, local realtor. Myself and my team get calls every single day from people looking to make this incredible city their home. So whether you're moving in 9 days or 90 days, give me a call, text, or email, and I'm excited to help you make a smooth move to the best city in Canada. Okay, let's dive into the West End. And this is an area that is very near and dear to my heart. Before I moved here, this was an area that I fell in love with, and I made a point every single trip to Vancouver. I always made a plan to come spend time in the West End. It usually was a run around the seawall, or I'd try and do walking meetings. I'd grab a coffee and take a walk with whoever I'm meeting on the seawall, and it just became a habit of every single time I was here, just because it is so desirable to be in and spend time, whether it's on Sunset Beach watching the incredible sunsets. It's a really big attractor for tourist destinations, and there's so much scenery there. But make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to share why, for me personally, this is an area that I would actually never live in. So stick around to the very end because I'm going to share some perspective here. There's pros and cons, but it really is dependent on what you value in your real estate choice. Let's start with pro number one is the location. So Stanley Park is the iconic 1,000-acre park that is actually larger than New York Central Park, and it is this rainforest. There's so many activities that you can do. It's about a 10-kilometer loop around Stanley Park, and there's the seawall there, so you can run, walk, bike, and it's a really great area that attracts a lot of tourists all year round. And I'm currently training for a half marathon, and that's where I'm doing my runs. Every single week is around the seawall, and I'm incredibly grateful to be able to have that at my doorstep. You've got multiple beaches. There's First Beach, Second Beach, Third Beach, there's Sunset Beach, there's English Bay. There's so many areas for people to gather to spend time, especially in the summertime, regardless of the time of day. Lots of people in Vancouver work all these different schedules. So even on a weekday, Tuesday afternoon, you'll see people on a nice day. They're just outside enjoying all of the scenery, the area. And even in the streets, in the residential part, you've got these big tree-lined streets, especially in the springtime. They're going to be covered with cherry blossoms. And then you've got really popular streets like Denman and Davie and Robson. Those are your main streets with all of your amenities, like really great restaurants, coffee shops, boutiques, everything like that. So as far as location goes, it checks a lot of these boxes as far as desirability. Pro number two is the price point that you can purchase real estate here. The median sale price in the West End for apartment-style condos in the last 30 days was $778,000, with the lowest actually being $239,000. And currently, there are 19 properties under $500,000 on the market right now. Most of those will be land leases, with the lease expiring around 2070, give or take a couple of years. And you're gonna start to see freehold type properties around that $500,000 mark. And this is gonna be typically your older style bachelor studio around that 400 square foot, and then it just goes up from there. Pro number three about the West End is it is so bikeable. If you have a bike and that is your primary mode of transportation, you can get around anywhere. And it's almost a more desirable choice than a car sometimes. And I have a lot of friends who have chose to live in this area and they bike everywhere. They work in East Van, or they work downtown, or maybe even in False Creek, and they bike, and it's such a great area. And it's super easy to get in and out of on bike. There's also the Moby bikes. There's stations everywhere around the West End. So it's really easy to pick up a bike from a station, return it wherever you want. And there's lots of really great bike paths and bike lanes that are set up. There's a bike loop all the way around Stanley Park. If you're taking a lap around Stanley Park, make sure you pay attention and go counterclockwise. Because if you go clockwise, you're gonna get some angry people looking at you, which has happened to me when I was newer and made a couple of my first trips around the seawall. So make sure you go counterclockwise. But outside of Stanley Park, there's lots of bike lanes throughout the residential area. There's bike lanes all the way along the seawall. You can actually go from Cole Harbor, which is the north part of the seawall, all the way around and then go down across Burrard Bridge through Kitts up to Spanish Banks. And it's a really gorgeous trip, especially if you do it closer towards the evening, you get the gorgeous sunset. Pro number 4 is the diversity. So the thing with the West End, it is a very attractive community for newcomers. A lot of my friends that first moved to Vancouver, they initially found a spot in the West End. And it really checks a lot of boxes. When you're moving to Vancouver, one of the attractions is the mountain, the ocean, the beaches. You can be in Canada and see palm trees, have beaches. And so that is a huge factor. And so that draws a lot of people. Plus the price point, whether you're purchasing or renting, it's some more affordable real estate that still offers this traditional Vancouver lifestyle, being close to beaches, amenities, and things like that. And you're gonna find a diverse community, people of all different backgrounds. That's really gonna be reflected in the restaurants and the stores, all different types of cuisines up Davie and Denman and Robson Street. And Davie Street is actually known for its LGBTQ plus community. It's a really friendly atmosphere, vibrant nightlife, and making it one of the most inclusive areas in Vancouver. You'll walk up and down Davie Street and notice all of the pride symbols, the rainbow, sidewalks, flags, and everything. And it's such an inclusive community for anyone to settle in Vancouver. And the number 5 pro I like about the West End is, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the real estate prices, is that it's an area that offers investment potential. And so you can purchase some of these lower priced properties and actually have the chance of cash flowing them, depending what your individual situation is as an investor. I mean, you can find properties that are, around that $300,000 mark. If you've got some cash that you're sitting on and want to put that in a property, you can instantly start cash flowing that. And even depending on what type of mortgage you want, one of the things I always caution clients with is when you're financing leasehold properties is you have to make sure that it's a long enough leasehold that you're actually going to be able to qualify for a mortgage. And so there's lots of little intricacies there. So if you're curious about investing and want to find property in Vancouver, all my info is in the description box below. So reach out and I'd love to have a more in-depth chat to figure out, does real estate investing in the West End make sense for you? Let's move on to the cons. So con number 1 about the West End is the traffic. And so this is actually the reason why I personally would not call this community home. Even though it has a very special place in my heart, I love spending time there. From the ease and my lifestyle, knowing that, again, I'm in real estate, I'm all over the place as far as my work takes me. It takes a lot of time, depending on the time of day, to get in and out of the West End. So that is one of the drawbacks that I find. That, there's been times I live downtown close to the Cambie Street Bridge, and I've had to go to friends and I've had to drive there, and they're right in the heart of downtown, almost close to English Bay. And it's taken me 25 minutes before, where I could bike that in like 12 minutes. And so it just goes to show that depending on somebody's lifestyle, and I have a few other colleagues in real estate and they've said the same thing. They love the West End, but just from an efficiency standpoint and not wanting to sit in a commute and sit in traffic all the time, that's one of the reasons that they wouldn't call this community home. Lots of friends that love the West End, they bike everywhere. And that's one of the pros about the West End is it's very bikeable. So it's one of the things to be aware of. It can take you a long time to get in and out depending on the time of day. And especially in the tourist season when there's just a lot more people in the area, it can take even longer. So just one thing to be aware of, depending on where and if you have to commute by vehicle. Con number 2 is there are a lot of leasehold type properties. So it's a different type of ownership. So freehold type ownership is where you own the property outright. A leasehold type ownership is you are actually renting that from either a university, a municipality. There are the First Nations here in Vancouver. And so it's one of the things to be aware of is you want to understand when does that lease expire, because that will affect your financing. And typically those properties, they're lower in price point. So again, that's a pro, but the con with that is that they don't appreciate as much. If you look at Vancouver real estate, it has traditionally gone up. Leasehold type properties go up at a little bit slower rate than freehold type properties. So that is one of the drawbacks to owning freeholds. But again, it depends on what somebody's individual circumstances desire. If the leaseholds are long enough out, maybe they're 50, 60, 70, 80 years, we don't have a ton to worry about, because what you do have to be cognizant on is if the leasehold is, or the expiry date is in the next 20, 30 years, it could potentially affect your financing and a lender actually lending money on that property. So it's just something to be aware of. And if you're looking for property in the West End, this is where it comes in really handy to chat with a really knowledgeable realtor about leaseholds and understanding your situation and understanding how to properly do your due diligence to make sure that you're getting a great property there. Number 3 is that there are a lot of older buildings. And this is one of the things on the pro side. It gives the West End its charm, its character. They're not all of these buildings that look exactly the same. They have a lot of character. There's different architecture, things like that. But it's one thing to be aware of. A lot of the buildings are the older wood frame, which can tend to be a lot louder, especially if you are on, if you're not on the top floor and you've got people above you or people beside you and they're really loud, depending on construction there. You also want to make sure that the building that you are looking in has been rain screened. It rains a lot here, so it's a way to protect the building. You want to make sure that older buildings have been taken care of really well. Another thing to look for in older buildings is the windows. Because a lot of these buildings are older, they're not air conditioned. So depending on the window, maybe there's just one window in the unit. You're not going to get a lot of breeze or airflow through. So looking at a unit potentially with 2 windows at strategic points in the unit is going to give you a little bit more of a breeze than just, I've seen some units and they just have one small window. And so in the summer, it can get very hot here. So that's just something to be aware of. And then looking and seeing, okay, is it a single pane? Is it a double pane window? Because that is going to determine, again, how much noise is going to be let in through the windows when they're closed. The number 4 con is parking. So if you drive a vehicle, this is definitely another point other than the commute that you want to be cognizant about, is does the unit that you're purchasing come with a parking stall? Or if you are a couple, maybe you have 2 cars and it only comes with 1 stall and you're like, oh, I'll just park on the street. I see that there's all of this zoning that parking is for residents. That is true. If you are a resident, you can apply for a resident parking pass. You just have to show proof that you actually live in the unit, provide a bill and your ID and things like that. But just because there is designated parking spots on the streets for residents doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to find one. If you come home from work and it's 5 o'clock and you're expecting to park right in front of your condo, maybe you've got bags of groceries and you're circling the block and having to park 2 or 3 blocks away, that is something to be aware of. And I know that's something that is definitely, to be aware of there. I know other people, friends, they've expressed that frustration. Definitely something, if you don't have a vehicle or if you've got 1 vehicle and your unit comes with 1 vehicle, you are good there. And the number 5 con is the noise, and it's especially prevalent during busy tourist season. There are streets like Denman and Davies can be very loud. Robson Street can be very loud. The crowd that comes to English Bay or Sunset Beach, especially in the summertime, there are people out there. There's lots of festivals. There's just lots of events that bring people to the area. And so that can be something to be really aware of depending where you're looking. If you're looking kind of right on one of those main roads, definitely be aware of that. Or maybe if you want something a little bit quieter, we look for something a little bit more inside the West End off the main roads. There's a lot of tourist attractions. There's something in the summertime called the Festival of Lights, which is a super cool fireworks festival. It goes on for a week, and on 3 separate occasions, they do this huge festival. They theme it after a different country, and they set fireworks off on a barge in English Bay, and it draws a crowd of massive numbers. There's people lined up through the streets. Sunset Beach, all the English Bay, it's literally covered people to people, like you're sandwiched in beside people. Even on the water, I've done this a few years. We've actually grabbed our paddle boards because it's been so busy on land. We've grabbed our paddle boards and paddled out and watched the fireworks from the water there. And even the water is packed. And so things like that bring tourists and just bring the general population of Vancouver to the area. And so streets are closed. So if you hope to be driving to your condo during something like that, that is definitely something to be aware of. That probably isn't going to happen, and you're probably going to get stuck at some point. So always just being aware of the festivals and events that are going around. There's lots of races that go around, like marathons and runs. So certain roads will be closed. So it's going to be tricky depending on the time of year, time of day that you're trying to get in and out of your place. So just again, something to be aware of when it comes to the West End. Okay, so this was a fun fact that you were sticking around to the end of the video to hear me share. The West End actually has the highest population density in all of Canada, with over 45,000 residents packed into 2.5 square kilometers. So you can look at this as a pro, you can look at this as a con. If you like more low-key, quiet, down-to-earth, secluded, you get annoyed by a lot of traffic or a lot of people, this might not be the best area for you. Or we might just want to be really specific and look at some of those really inside streets in the West End, or something maybe a little bit closer to the downtown side versus closer to English Bay. This might be a pro if you're like, I want to be in the heart of everything. I want to have a condo that overlooks that Festival of Lights. I want to be right in the middle of festivals. I want to have friends over when all of this stuff happens and have them in my condo and entertain and literally live in the middle of everything. Everyone's lifestyle is different. That's why I always start my real estate conversations with a consult to get to know you and your goals, because I want to help you find a property that's going to be a reflection of your true lifestyle. And so connect with me, because I want to paint a picture about what life in Vancouver could look like for you. I'm not necessarily worried what your budget and how many bedrooms you want, but I want to understand your lifestyle so that I can reverse engineer and, yes, get a property in your budget that checks the boxes on the bedroom and the bathroom count, but that fits your lifestyle. It is going to allow you to really love living in Vancouver as I have. I hope you got value from this video. If you're curious about the West End or any other community in Vancouver, please reach out. I would love to chat. All my info is in the description box below. Again, my name is Megan Becker, local realtor. I would love to connect and help you make a smooth move to the best city in Canada. And until next time, it's Taco Tuesday. So I'm gonna go meet some friends at Taco Fino and get some of my absolute favorite tacos.